My name's Pete Kosogorin. I've been flying with the Shuttleworth collection since 2002. That was my sort of apprentice year, and I've worked with BAE Systems since 2006. I fly the Eurofighter Typhoon and the Hawk for BAE Systems up at Wharton, and I'm lucky enough to be involved in the BAE Systems heritage flight. So the Anson you see here, the Cirrus Moth that's flying in the show today, and the Blackburn B2, all significant historic aircraft that were built by companies that became BAE Systems before, and before that obviously British Aerospace and other British aerospace companies. I'm going to talk about the Anson and also the reason that BAE Systems supports the heritage aircraft. And one of the most significant aspects is obviously that the company is made up of all these different companies that make a lot of the aircraft here at Shuttleworth. And Shuttleworth is the spiritual home, if you like, of British aviation and heritage aircraft. So that's one of the reasons why the aircraft are kept here, all of the BAE Systems aircraft. And the other reason is obviously that they've got such great expertise in maintaining and looking after these airplanes. So who likes the new paint scheme? Has anybody got any negative feelings about the new paint scheme, or does everybody quite like it? Sorry?
Looks much better than the old scheme.
It does, yeah, I agree.
But don't change it.
No, don't change it. Good, excellent. No, we like it, and it's
changed because we've had some years in a civilian scheme, so now we get
yes,
to
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So it's a significant year this year, not only for the Royal Air Force but also for the Avro Anson. So I think the 28th of June 1968, so not quite 50-year anniversary of the last Royal Air Force Anson retiring from service. So that's a significant milestone of 50 years. And obviously one of the big reasons, one of the great reasons why we changed the colour this year was because of the RAF centenary and the importance of the relationship between the company and heritage aircraft and Royal Air Force Coningsby, hence the colours as a station flight of the aircraft as it flew in the 1960s. So I'll try and talk a little bit about the history. I will refer to my notes just to make sure that I give you the best information that's available, but also I'll tell you a little about flying the airplane. So it'll be about 15 minutes or so of a chat, and then there'll be opportunity for questions at the end. So if you have a question, then I'll give you the opportunity at the end, no problem at all. So the Anson first flew in 1935. Roy Chadwick was a designer, very famous chap who worked for Avro and was involved in the design of the Avro Manchester, which obviously went on to become the Lancaster. 7,000 or so of those were made, and he also was obviously instrumental in design of the Anson. And its inception was as a maritime reconnaissance aircraft, so it was used. So it's very appropriate that it's here today on the Fly Navy Day. And I believe, I'm told, that it flew with about 50 Fleet Air Armed Squadrons during the war. So it's a very ubiquitous aircraft in the maritime role. It also had a great training role. So it was the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan aircraft, and it was used in the UK, Canada, Australia and New Zealand as the Commonwealth Plan, but also in the United States as a multi-engine training aircraft. And I believe 100,000 crews, including gunners, navigators, pilots, were trained using the Avro Anson. So obviously it had a massive, significant impact on training during the Second World War, as well as in the maritime reconnaissance role. And right up until the end of its life, it was used as a transport aircraft, as the communications aircraft and the station flight aircraft for stations like Scampton, Marham, Coningsby, and those bases, all of which have obviously a significant relationship with BAE Systems and obviously still operating RAF aircraft today. The aircraft was named after Admiral Anson. And obviously, as I mentioned, it was used in the maritime role. Just over 8,000 were built in the UK, and just under 3,000 were built in Canada. So 11,000 aircraft, so more than the Lancaster. And I believe that there are a number still in existence in museums, but there are very, very few that are actually flying today and flying examples. And obviously, in its new paint scheme, this is probably one of the nicest that's out there, one of the nicer aircraft that are out there. It's a beautiful aircraft to fly. We normally cruise around about 130, 140 knots. So it's the same sort of speed you'll have in a modern twin piston aircraft if you were just flying around for pleasure or transport. It will fly for around about 4 hours on its 140 gallons of fuel. And the passengers we're allowed to carry 2 passengers, although it has seating for 6, and we almost always operate it with 2 pilots. One of the reasons we operate it with 2 pilots is because the captain has to sit in the left, and he's the only one, he or she is the only one who has a pneumatic brake lever on the control yoke to actually steer the aircraft on the ground. So if you're flying on the right hand, from the right hand seat, you don't have any brakes at all, you don't have any control of the brakes. But you do have control in the air, and you also have control of the fuel cocks, which are necessary. So if we have a problem, we have an emergency and we have to shut one of the engines down, we have to close the fuel cock, and it's physically impossible to reach that from the left-hand cockpit. So that's one of the reasons why we have someone in the right. It doesn't have to be a pilot, but normally it's someone who's very aviation orientated. Could be an engineer. Our Anson expert here, Toby, who can tell you an awful lot more about the engineering aspects, and any technical questions that you might have at the end, then he's very good at the knowledge that he has about the Anson. We'd normally fly for about 3 hours maximum, so we'd have a reserve. So I say it's got 4 hours endurance. We'd never fly it for 4 hours because we'd be close to running out of fuel. But for example, last Thursday, we wanted to take the aircraft to RAF Valley for their Families Day to do a display, but unfortunately the weather stopped us. The weather precluded us from being able to do that. But that's about a 3-hour flight. So it's about an hour and 25 minutes to get to Valley, about 10-minute display, and about the same coming back. And very pleasant aircraft to fly, very comfortable. And as you can see from the cockpit, the glass around the windscreen, it's really, really good visibility, good field of view. A lot of modern aircraft even don't have a very good upward field of view. So if you're turning, when we do some of the more dynamic displays we do here, you can actually see into the turn and look out for other aircraft, look out for other hazards, etc. So it's actually a really nice aeroplane to fly. Controls are rather heavy, not too heavy, but they're rather heavy, so you need to trim. So if you change the speed between the sort of landing speed or takeoff speed of around about 80 knots and 120, 130 knots in the cruise, it's a big control force to hold the aircraft level. So obviously we've got a trim wheel which helps us with that, but it's not over difficult like some of the aircraft that are here. The seat themselves, we've got 4-point harness. We've got air conditioning. Basically, you can open one of the windows, but it's a little bit. One of the disadvantages of having all that glass in the cockpit is, for example, today it's a little bit like a greenhouse. So I'm not flying it today. John Hurrell, who's one of the other BAE Systems pilots, he flies for Heritage and has been flying for Shuttleworth for a number of years. He's going to display it today a little bit later on, but it'll be a little bit uncomfortable, I imagine. Once you get going in the propellers, the fans allow you a little bit of air into the open windows. It's not too bad, but it can get very, very, very warm. The other users I mentioned about it as a Commonwealth training aircraft, but some of the air forces, it was used by Afghanistan, Argentina. The aircraft was used to form Gulf Air, so the airline of the Kingdom of Bahrain. I think it was formed by an RAF pilot just after the war. And so it's ubiquitous all around the world as well. So lots of the former Commonwealth countries, but also other countries, and it's used in Africa and Asia, mostly as a transport aircraft. And interestingly, as a transport aircraft and a twin, it's not a Beaufighter, it's not a high-performance twin aircraft, or even a night fighter or otherwise, but there were a number of variants in the war, of which a number of them were armed, and this one obviously never was. But they had nose guns and upper guns, and I think in 1941, I'm not sure on the year, but a pilot off, it's Dunkirk, sorry, during the Dunkirk evacuation, Ansons were providing cover, and one of them was being attacked by 3 Messerschmitts, and the chap was flying very low, avoiding these aircraft, trying to take them away from his colleagues and distract them from his colleagues. And he was flying very low and slow over the waves. One of the Messerschmitts overshot, and the nose gunner actually shot it down. So it's one of the very few transport aircraft that's got a confirmed air-to-air kill. So I think 2 of the Messerschmitts were actually shot down that day, and one of them was damaged. And I've forgotten the name of the chap who did that. Pilot Officer Peters. There you go. Written down on my notes. I said it flew in 1935 up until 1968. Some of the other operators: Iraq, Ireland, Israel, Netherlands, Norway, Paraguay, Portugal, Rhodesia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Southern Rhodesia, Syria, Turkey and Yugoslavia. So huge amount of air forces. Canada, yeah, so we mentioned Canada, the British Commonwealth training, and there's a provenance of the aircraft being operated up at Warton in Lancashire, so where I'm based and where BAE fly Typhoon and Hawks from today, and have our manufacturing facility where production aircraft are flown from. The Anson was flown by the United States Air Force there during the war for training and for transport purposes. Toby, you got any nice engineering facts and figures?
Have we talked about the construction of the aeroplane at all?
No.
No. So it's this being the Series 2. We've got the aluminium wings on it. Series 1s were fabric covered. Fuselage is a steel tube construction, and if you look through the passenger windows, you can actually see the tubes as they go across the windows. So it's steel tube, and you've got the wooden frames to give it the shape, and then it's fabric over the top. The bit from the cockpit backwards, just past the back of the windows, is actually plywood. But the only reason it's plywood is so you have somewhere to screw your windows, because you can't screw them into the fabric. So it was a majority of a fabric-covered aeroplane. They made more Avro Ansons than they did DC-3s. So it was one of the more prolific aeroplanes out there. They made a lot of them. Unfortunately, not many of them survived due to the fact it was fabric and wood. So as they got older, they tended to need more maintenance, and it brought the prices up really. But generally, it doesn't give too many problems. Pretty well behaved. The engines are Armstrong Siddeley Cheetah 17s, and they're 420 horsepower for takeoff, and plus 4 nominally rated at 380 for your general cruise.
Yeah, it's not an overly powerful aircraft, so they're not Merlins. You know, they don't give you a really rapid rate of climb, but it's very, very comfortable, and single engine performance could be described as adequate. I think it's just about okay, but not that we've flown for any length on a single engine, but we understand it's adequate. But it's a pleasure. It is a pleasure to fly.
Also being the Series 2, it has the hydraulic undercarriage. Mark 1's had a manually wound up undercarriage, and also it has variable pitch propellers on it. It's the slightly luxurious version.
Yeah. So this is a 46, isn't it?
46.
1946, a sort of early Series 2, but later version of the Anson. I think there are a number of Ansons flying I've seen pictures of in New Zealand, and they're some of the earlier, they're the armed versions. Anson 1.
3 airworthy in the world. This one, the other
Coventry?
one in the UK, and then the Mark 1 in New Zealand.
Yeah. So out of 11,000, there's only 3 flying. I'm one of them here today.
Yep.
If anybody has any questions, more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
What's the U-shaped metal there? Just for that?
That's your oil cooler, and then on the inside is the exhaust pipe. On the later ones they swap them around so the exhaust pipe's away from the passengers. So because this is an early one, I don't know why they designed it that way, because it makes it very noisy in the cockpit. That's your oil cooler.
One of the things the engineers remind us every time we fly is to control the oil cocks. The oil cocks need to be switched on clearly before every flight, but they need to be turned off after every flight. And it's a process that we use. You see a little notice in the windscreen that sits there right in front of the pilot's eyes. So if the pilot gets into the cockpit and the oil cocks are off, then he or she is reminded to get out and open them. But Toby's pretty much always on the ball to make sure that they're in the right place, because starting the engines with them off would be really bad, and leaving them on after flight, obviously, I think floods.
Yeah, you end up with oil in the cylinders and in the exhaust pipe.
Yeah, so you have problems starting, and obviously would need some work after that.
Makes more work for me.
Any further questions?
Do you do your engine inspections in accordance with the original manufacturer's specification? I'm just thinking about the age of the engine. If internal corrosion might not be taken into account because of its age.
They are, because we don't do many hours a year. We don't do a calendar-based maintenance. Hours-based maintenance is always done on a calendar base. So it has manual inspection, and then every third year we have a recheck, a bigger inspection, and then it has a 9-year inspection. The internal corrosion on the engines is pretty good on this. It's kept inside all the time, really. And then during the winter periods, the engines are inhibited so they don't get corroded. So we're pretty good on it. As far as corrosion internally on engines go, Cheetahs are pretty good.
And for the amount we use the aircraft a year, we probably, I think last year we did about 25 hours flying, which is a lot more hours than has been done in previous years. And part of that is because we attend the Families Day. So I said Valley is a 3-hour flight. We actually went to Lossiemouth to do their Families Day last year, and I think that was, Toby came along. Did we do 8 hours total?
8 hours, yeah.
It was 8 hours flying total, just over a weekend. And the aircraft didn't miss a beat, did it?
No, it's good.
But so actually, I think it does it some good to fly it more, and the long flights are not onerous for it. It copes really well.
It burns all the condensation out of the oil.
Yeah.
The longer the flights, the better.
Any further? Sorry, there's one.
Do you know how long they were actually used for coastal patrol?
How long they were used for coastal patrol? That's a good question. I think it was that was one of its earliest roles.
Well, that's what it was designed for.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't like to say when it actually stopped, when it came out of service for the coastal patrol, and it's a maritime reconnaissance. I don't know whether it had anti-submarine capability, but I know it was reconnaissance. It was coastal reconnaissance around the UK. And
when I was alive, we lived in Cheshire, about a couple of miles from Woodford.
Ah.
So anything that went over it was either an Anson or a Lancaster.
yeah. So I think the Hudson was used as well, wasn't it? Was that was used a lot?
That was replaced.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that might have been sort of midway through the 42, 43, something like that. And these aircraft would have then gone into a training role. So that's probably why they were used as a trainer. Yeah, a very reliable aircraft as a trainer, a good aircraft as a trainer. Any further questions? Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoy the show. Hope you have a good day. Thank you.